Imagine this. You've rebuilt your life, stepped into a new world, you're finally being seen the way you always dreamed, and then suddenly, the one person who knew your unfiltered past starts whispering again. That's Meghan Markle's problem. Because the man who once loved her the most is also the man who witnessed the version she works very, very hard to erase. And tonight, we're stepping into the story that almost ended her royal rise before it even began. They say the people who know your past are the ones who can ruin your future. For Meghan Markle, that person isn't a royal, a tabloid, or a palace insider. It's Trevor Engelson, the Hollywood producer she married before fame, before titles, before Windsor Castle was even a daydream. Their marriage ended, yes. But Trevor didn't walk away empty-handed. He walked away with memories, stories, moments that painted a very different Meghan from the polished duchess the world later met. And one story, according to whispers close to Trevor's old circle, keeps resurfacing. A single night. Toronto. 2016. A night so deeply buried that even the tabloids couldn't sniff it out. Ladies, what do you think happens when two worlds, Hollywood secrets and royal image, collide in the shadows? Meghan was filming Suits. Harry had slipped into the city quietly. No staff, no eyes, just private time with the woman he was falling for. On the surface, romantic. Behind the scenes, whispers say the night spiraled far from innocent. According to the people who partied in Toronto's elite circles, Meghan wasn't just planning a low-key evening. She was allegedly arranging something the nightlife crowd called a run. Code word. Short. Simple. Loaded. A run didn't mean appetizers and Pinot Noir. It meant indulgence. It meant discretion. It meant a type of night Harry, of all people, should have avoided at any cost. And then came the shocker. A name, one that changed the tone of the whispers instantly. Princess Eugenie. Harry's own cousin. Now, no one knows whether she actually participated or was merely mentioned in passing. But you know how gossip works, right? Once a royal name appears in the wrong room, even by accident, jaws drop. Tell me, ladies, if someone mentioned your cousin during a night like that, wouldn't you start panicking? Sources claim the night nearly collapsed into scandal. A close call. A near-exposure moment. The kind of split second that makes your heart punch your ribs because you know, if the wrong person saw, everything would end right there. But magically, nothing leaked. No headlines. No paparazzi photos. No police reports. No flight logs. Just silence. And silence, when everything should have blown up, always tells the loudest story. Here's the whisper from that circle. Strings were pulled. Fast. Hard. Quietly. Harry's image? Fragile. Meghan's rising profile? Valuable. Princess Eugenie's name anywhere near trouble? Unacceptable. So what happens when three worlds are at risk at the same time? Cover everything up. Let me ask you, ladies, have you ever witnessed a situation where the people in power stepped in not to fix the problem, but to hide it? To understand why Meghan allegedly moved so effortlessly through that Toronto night, you have to understand the other life she built there. Toronto wasn't just where she filmed Suits. It was where she slipped into a world with no cameras, no royal protocol, and no polite society watching. Everything gravitated around a single place. Soho House. But not the nice brunch version you see on Instagram. This was the private, velvet curtain side. Insiders say behind those doors, indulgence was the real currency. Drinks. Secrets. Connections. And sometimes, more than that. And this is where Meghan, according to people who knew her back then, stood out. Not as a bystander. Not as a pretty actress in a corner. But as the connector. The one who knew who wanted what, who knew how to get it, and who made sure the night never lost fuel. She wasn't the party girl. She was the supplier of the atmosphere. The woman who could make powerful people feel untouchable. Ladies, doesn't every friend group have that one woman who somehow knows everyone, knows everything, and always gets things done, even when things shouldn't be done? And this is where Trevor, her ex-husband, re-enters the picture not as a villain, but as someone who saw the earliest version of this pattern. Back in 2011, at their wedding in Jamaica, Trevor and Meghan were surrounded by friends, sunshine, and relaxed island energy. But ask anyone who was there what they remember. It's not the vows. It's not the romance. It's certainly not the fairy tale. What they still talk about, years later, is Meghan allegedly sitting down and rolling over 100 joints for guests. Not as a joke. Not as a quirky moment. As an operation. Organized. Efficient. Prepared. Trevor saw the curator Meghan long before the world watched her walk into Windsor Castle. Ladies, if someone does this at their wedding, what do you think they're capable of when they're living in a city like Toronto, surrounded by people who expect nights that never end? Hollywood saw one version of Meghan, the hustling actress. Her family saw another, the polished daughter. Prince Harry saw another, the safe space he craved after years of public chaos. But Toronto? Toronto saw the version that thrived in shadows. The confident one. The loud one. The woman who didn't flinch when the night became bold or dangerous. And somehow, none of these worlds touched each other. Not once. Not ever. Doesn't that take skill? Ladies, be honest, could you manage 3 different versions of yourself without letting any of them overlap? Because here's the twist, Harry didn't fall for Meghan because she was innocent. He fell because she understood his darkness. And according to whispers from people close to that circle, Meghan offered Harry something no royal protocol ever could. A place where he could indulge, without scandal. Without fear. Without cameras. She didn't tame him. She matched him. So picture this. The lights are low, the table is set, and 2 people who absolutely should not be sharing a private dinner decide to do exactly that. And here's the part that still makes the women in my comments say, "Girl, I knew something was off from the start." Because while the world thought their relationship was picture perfect, she was clocking every micro-expression, every dodged question, every "I'll tell you later." Let me ask you, have you ever sat across from someone you loved and suddenly realized they were emotionally living in another room entirely? Type yes if you've been there. Now, back to the dinner. He kept checking his phone. Not once. Not twice. Over a dozen times in 1 hour. And by the way, when a man puts his phone face down, that's not a setting. That's a symptom. She tried to stay calm, tried to keep it graceful. But her instinct? It wasn't whispering anymore, it was screaming. Around the 30-minute mark, while he stepped away to take a work call, the phone buzzed again. And this was different. A preview popped up. Just a few words. But enough to shift her entire reality. Just make sure she doesn't find out. Let me pause here. What would you have done in that moment? Confront immediately? Stay silent and observe? Or walk out with your dignity and deal with it later? Drop your answer. Confront, observe, walk out. Because she chose the hardest option of all. She stayed silent. Not out of weakness, but because women over 30 know something younger women rarely understand. Silence is not surrender. Silence is strategy. She wanted to see how deep the story went, and trust me, it went deeper. A few days later, someone unexpected stepped forward. Not a sibling. Not a co-worker. Not a concerned neighbor. A close friend who had been watching the entire situation unfold like a slow-motion disaster. And you know how we always say, women don't warn you unless they've already seen the fire before you smell the smoke? Exactly. The friend sat her down and dropped the truth gently, but firmly. There's something you've been ignoring for too long. But here's the interesting twist. She didn't break down. She didn't lash out. She didn't scream. She simply said, "I knew." Because that's the thing about emotional betrayal, your heart knows long before your mind is willing to accept the memo. Let me ask you another question. Do you believe women always know before the truth comes out? Yes or no? And then came the moment every story like this reaches. The snap. Not a meltdown. Not a dramatic movie scene argument. Something far scarier. Her peace. She became cold. Quiet. Controlled. You know how powerful a woman becomes when she's finally done explaining herself? He came home full of excuses, stories, half-truths stitched together with confidence but no consistency. She listened. With a stillness that made him nervous. She simply asked one question. Is there anything else you want to tell me? He said no. But here's the thing. Men always confess 10% and hope you'll be too tired to look for the other 90%. And she already knew the 90%. Just when she thought she'd reached peak betrayal. Someone else entered the picture, someone who should have been on her side. A person she trusted, who chose convenience over loyalty. They had known. 4 months. And stayed silent. Imagine that. The betrayal behind the betrayal. Let me ask you, which hurts more? The partner who lies, or the friend who stays silent? Type partner or friend. This is where the story shifts from heartbreak to strategy. Because instead of reacting, she started planning. She moved money. She protected documents. She reached out to people who had been quietly waiting to support her. And she didn't tell him a thing. Because sometimes the most powerful move a woman can make is to let a man think everything is fine while she prepares her clean break. Every night, she rehearsed her exit in her mind. What to say. What to leave behind. What to take with her. But the real twist? The moment she finally confronted him, he wasn't angry. He was terrified. Because he didn't expect the woman who used to cry over him to suddenly be done with him. She walked out of the room mid-conversation. Calm. Composed. Almost unreal. And he followed her, demanding answers he didn't deserve. She turned back, finally ready to say the one thing she had been holding in for far too long. But before the words even left her mouth, his phone buzzed again. The same name. The same message style. And she just smiled, a smile that said, "You just confirmed everything." Want to know what she said next? That's where part 3 begins, but for now, you tell me. Should she expose him publicly, or disappear silently and let karma speak for her? Comment expose or silent exit.